It's just before midnight at Leipzig's freight airport. Planes are landing in quick succession. Andreas Ziemann is in charge here. He's been with the company since DHL started its operations at this location last spring. He says every plane brings in a piece of the outside world. It's his job to make sure everything runs like clockwork. Delays are expensive. The freight hub has created more than 2,100 jobs in a region plagued by particularly high unemployment.
From my perspective, it's fantastic. The shift times mean it's not the most convenient job you could have, but it's a job, it's a good thing to do, and it's good for the surrounding area and the city.
Andreas Ziemann grew up in Leipzig. He's now 33. 20 years ago, he took part in the famous Monday demonstrations with his parents here at St. Nicholas Church, where the peaceful revolution began. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets around the church to protest against the East German leadership. They demanded freedom and democracy. The Berlin Wall fell just a few weeks later.
Without those demonstrations, without the movement that started there, we wouldn't be where we are today and the present system wouldn't exist. It makes me proud that it all started here in Leipzig and I was able to be part of it.
He says Leipzig has changed completely since then. Urban renewal has changed the look of many areas, but the atmosphere has also become more cosmopolitan. Just round the corner from the city center, there's an old industrial quarter full of empty buildings. For 125 years, cotton was spun here. The mill has now been turned into a buzzing arts and commercial center. Bertram Schulze is the chief executive. His archive of photographs and objects document the dramatic change in infrastructure. Up until just before the fall of communism, some 4,000 people worked in the spinning mill until the business folded.
Loads of people lost their jobs. You can see it here in this archive, and also talking to former employees, that it wasn't just a job for them, it was the center of their world. Everything, including childcare and leisure activities, was organized around the workplace. It's a big loss for people.
The qualified architect and business economist gradually converted the factory premises into its present form, a healthy mix of artist studios and small businesses. The location has become highly coveted. Artists of the so-called New Leipzig School, in demand all over the world, have their studios here.
We're always striving to improve quality. We now have a long waiting list for studios. Many artists think having a studio here will make them rich, but those aren't the right people for us. On the other hand, despite the waiting list, we beg some young artists to take studios, because every good artist that emerges from here is good publicity.
Michael Triegel is one of some 100 artists working in the mill today.
It isn't true that large is always difficult. A form as big as this is sometimes easier to make than a tiny object that demands a lot of nimble work with the wrists and fingers.
A studio here costs an average of €3 per square meter. That's extremely cheap. Christiane Baumgartner is an artist who specializes in woodcut prints. She was also in Leipzig 20 years ago.
Demonstrating back then, we had no expectations. We just wanted something to change. Nobody thought reunification would happen so soon. And of course we wanted to travel. I've managed to fulfill that dream. I immediately went abroad. That was important for me, to be able to expand my worldview. I think that's important for everyone.
Baumgartner is now in international demand, holding exhibitions in London, Amsterdam, and New York. But despite her frequent trips abroad, she continues to live in her beloved hometown, Leipzig.